Gardiner MacDougall joins us here, head coach of Moncton. How are you, Gardiner? Thanks so much for stopping by. Much appreciated. So I was flying in from Florida today, and I'm thinking, I'm talking to Gardiner MacDougall. I want to hear Gardiner MacDougall tell stories, but like coaching stories. And congratulations, by the way, on coaching. I don't think anyone is surprised at that, by the way. My favorite coach story is the Fred Shiro bacon and egg story. I don't know if you ever heard the bacon and egg story.
I have heard the bacon and eggs, but maybe not with
Fred. With Fred, the team gets waxed on Saturday night against Pittsburgh. Not a single puck hits the ice. The next day he comes in the room, draws a plate, draws 3 strips of bacon and 2 eggs, and says, "You guys are talking about the contributions you made last night, all the contributions. This is what I had for breakfast. This is what I expect out of you as a Philadelphia Flyer. The chicken made a contribution, but the pig made a commitment." That was Fred Shiro. That was his way of getting to his players. Do you have like a favorite coach or pet sayings or any sort of coach wisdom that you like to impart to kids?
I think there's a number that have come up throughout the season. A lot of times it's spontaneous.
Yeah.
It's from different stories. In the past, I've been lucky to be at this for a while. I read a lot.
Mm-hmm. What do you read? I'm curious. Let me park that for a second. What interests you?
High performance books on teams or players. I probably read more basketball or football books and hockey books. It seems that, like John Wooden, I probably read 10 of his books.
Okay.
And then at a used bookstore in Moncton, I found another one in the fall this year that I didn't have. And guys like Nick Saban, with Alabama, the success they had. But then Clemson got hot, so you like to read about their coach. And I think in the business world, sometimes you like to read about high performers in the business world. I think there's qualities of high performance that are transferable over not only to sport but to business and to life. So Robin Sharma is a guy that I've read all his books from. The Monk That Stole the Ferrari was his first seller.
Oh yeah.
And I get a weekly update from him. He's a guy from Cape Breton Island that was a law student at Dalhousie and got bored with law, and I'd say he's probably the number one motivational speaker in the world now. So I'll get a weekly thing from him. But one of the things, we kind of changed some of this, but consistency is the mother of excellence, and incremental improvement is the father. And we'll talk to our teams a lot about that.
I'm glad you got it. You brought it to your team. I'm curious because we keep hearing about kids have short attention spans. Like, look, I got 3 kids too. I know that at a certain point they check out. Now, part of that is just because it's dad talking to them, and they'll be more in tune to their coaches talking to them. They'll stick with it longer. But how receptive, and maybe for how long, are the kids receptive to your messages? And do you know when they're starting to tune out a little bit?
Yeah, I think I do a lot of talks to businesses, presentation. I guess I'm more of a presenter than a talker, and I've tried to study what makes a top-notch presenter and things like that, and I've had lots of experience of that. And it's interesting. I mean, it didn't work out how we wanted it, but in our Memorial Cup semifinal, Luke Medill, who's a former player of mine, former assistant coach, spent his 3 years. We told him he came to UNB to get his real degree after 4 years at McGill. And and his dad was a former player at UNB and still holds a record, 7 goals in 1 game, Herb Medill. But Luke has worked with us all year, and he's unbelievable in sports psychology field of what he does. He teaches at St. Andrew's School in Toronto there. But he's fairly in-depth, done the World Juniors, does Hockey Canada, and we brought him in, finished his last class on Wednesday at St. Andrews, and so we flew him in the next morning to Rimouski, and he had a chance to speak to our group, and by Zoom all year. He's spoken to our group all year, but it was great to get him live. And then we had him in prior to our game, our game prep, and our game prep, I think, is maybe a little bit maybe not unusual, but some of the things we do. But we have each coach talk a little bit, and I'm always, as you mentioned, on I think simplicity is the ultimate source of sophistication. And how simple can we make something? And a lot of times in the coaching world, and especially practice-wise, a lot of coaches like to go to the board and probably prove how smart we are. Complicated.
I don't know
drill.
what you're talking about, Gardiner. I've never seen that out of a coach. But I don't know.
So and we talked about that, but he was amazed. I was fortunate to have tremendous staff. I think the award I got today was coach is really the staff of the year, and the staff of the year to me extends to our owner Robert Irving because he's the head of the staff, and he's just unbelievable. The environment he provides and the opportunity he provides for our team, our organization, and certainly our coaching staff. But Luke came in, and Dustin Friesen, who did an amazing job as an associate coach. He'll kind of have the pre-scout. Antoine Samuel, I can't say enough about a goalie coach, a video coach. He does a pre-scout, just a phenomenal person and what he lent. And then Doug Dowell, a longtime pro player, did a tremendous job. And everyone had their little niche.
Yeah.
And he was just so amazed. He said that, it's probably, I remember in the NHL you'd hear about video sessions trying to be 5 minutes or less at the NHL level.
Yep.
And I don't know if you can say on time, because I think if you change the environment, we start with maybe a video, one person talks, another person would have a different topic, and then maybe the environment changes that. And so I don't know if you can say, hey, you got to be 4 minutes or less or 5 minutes. I'm always, hey, we got to be short and we got to be to the point,
right?
That type of stuff. But I thought our group did a really, really good job of doing that. That being said, we started miserably all 4 games at the Memorial Cup. So usually at UNB, I think we're well known for starting fast and starting on time. And so that's my summer project. What the heck happened for that first period? Because if we take care of the first period, the second, third, we're usually pretty good. So that's my summer project.
You mentioned the Memorial Cup. There's one thing that I do want to ask you about, and I understand if it's private between the coach and the players, but that huddle at the end with your group, that's pretty unique. I remember watching this. We're like, well, it's Gardiner MacDougall, so we should expect something different. But that one was really unique for me, and I think really unique for a lot of people.
Yeah, that moment is the worst moment performance-wise of these guys' careers, because the goal is to go to the Memorial Cup and win it.
Yeah.
So it's not only for our staff but heartbreaking, for these players. And it was just we had a lot of fans that came to Rimouski, and a lot of fans are watching on TV and things like that. So just acknowledgement. I always say we've got to try to make a significant difference, and we're really performers. And we talk a lot about whether it's Wayne Gretzky said it or Michael Jordan said it. Like every time you play, and the original Michael Jordan video that they did, the highlight video, I think he says it on it, but it's been attributed to Wayne Gretzky several times. Like you're playing, someone's watching you for the first time tonight, and someone's watching you for the last time tonight. And it was interesting. Dylan Gill, who we acquired in a trade at Christmas, and Spencer Gill, who plays for Rimouski, they played against one another in, I think, January in Moncton. And we talk about that different times. And this was pretty neat. The two brothers going to play against one another, big game. And we didn't play as well that game. We didn't have as much belief as we needed. We acquired more belief as we played them later on in the year. But Dylan came to me later that next week, and he said, Coach, I just want to let you know, we had a lady that's been with her family for a long time. She's like a second grandmother. And she was so excited to be able to come and watch Spencer and I play this game. The next day, she was in her 80s. The next day, she had a heart attack and passed away. But she was so excited that, and it's pretty neat that you always said someone's watching for the first time, someone's watching for the last time. Little did we know it'd be like that. But they took it as a positive, the Gill family, that she got to watch the both of you play a game against one another, and she was so pleased when she left the arena. So part of that little scrum was just to acknowledge, hey, this is special. We get a chance in the dressing room, but there's a lot of people that drove to Moncton. A lot of parents came here. They're still cheering you. They're because of who you are. You're part of the Moncton Wildcats, but you're special people. So we're just, even though we're in Rimouski, we just take a moment to acknowledge these people that have given so much for each and every one of you and for our team.
That's really thoughtful. That really is. And one of the players, and we're going to hear plenty more about him leading up to the end of June in Los Angeles, Caleb Desnoyers. What can the coach tell us about someone who's going to be drafted top 10, maybe top 5 in a couple weeks here?
Yeah, just I don't know if special is overused word, but he's special.
Yeah.
And he's elite special. And I was fortunate at the under 18 to get a chance to coach him. And initially, it wasn't going to be that long because he was an underage, and then. It was tough to lose Roger McQueen, but Caleb Desnoyers got a chance to play full time in that tournament, and played with Martone and played with McKinnon. Did a really good job as an underage, in that tournament for us. And didn't know at that time I'm going to be his full time coach in Moncton, but it worked out, and got the job. And certainly the first call to a player I made would be to Caleb. And I think there was, something came out. I think we had beat Sweden and going to the gold medal final, and our good RDS had put something out, the new coach of the Moncton Wildcats, and of course Caleb's a curiosity, full of curiosity. The next day, is this true, coach? I said, let's win today.
Talk about that after. We'll talk about that after.
But he changes things when he comes to the rink every day. He's just got such a magnetic personality. He's a team first guy, and he's just so engaged. He walks in the rink and our team gets better. And when you go through a long season like this, and he had the Hockey Canada. It seems every time he goes to Hockey Canada, he gets banged up. We love the experience, but he went to a link. He got banged up there. He played really well. I got to watch on TV that. And he come back. So we rested him. We wanted him. He's a key part of our team. So we gave him some time. Our first game of the season, our home opener, he separated his shoulder. So, again, he's out for a bit. We just got him going again really good. He went up to the Prospects game and had a tremendous second game, I thought. Not the first game, but he texted me, he said, I'll be the real Caleb today, and in true to form he is, and got banged up again. And if you check our stats, I didn't play much center after that. He played through an injury till Christmas. We had a little bit of time at Christmas, and to rest it up. And then in January, he had somewhat similar injury on the other. So he played both wrists banged up all year, so he's got a tremendous amount of grit to him. But he's just a difference maker, and he loves the game. No moment's too big for him, and he's made a significant difference for our team. He's just one of those elite special people that as you'll find in LA, he's going to be in the elite number where he gets drafted. He
certainly will. I want to ask you a couple more things. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up a very unique situation that you find yourself in with your son, Taylor. We always think of father-son combinations in hockey. We think of the Howes, for example. Playing with Mark and Marty, the Gagordy, beaming like a proud parent. What's it like working with your son in the role that he has with Moncton?
Yeah, it's one of those lifetime moments. How many, we got a lot of, you go across the country, we got a lot of dads that are into hockey. A lot of them work in hockey, a lot are minor hockey coaches, a lot have played the game, millions have probably played the game in their country, and they get that opportunity. And I was fortunate to coach him at UNB for 5 years. And I don't know if my wife always agreed with the amount of ice time I gave him, but and it wasn't easy, obviously the program we had at UNB, the step in that, and he had a role with us that was part of team success. And I still remember we were playing the national championships in Halifax, and we were playing St. Mary's in the national semifinal. We were down 5-on-3. We have different guys that can go out there. He was, very great face-off guy, and I remember putting him out in the 5-on-3. And, there was a coach in me, okay, this is the right thing, but there was a dad in me, my God, son, please. Because there's a no-win almost. If he kills it off, he's supposed to. If he doesn't, what did the coach do that? But that was one moment, and we ended up winning the national championship that year. And it was so gratifying, as a coach's son. But so that experience at 5 years was phenomenal. This is a different venue, a different avenue. I mean, obviously what he's done in his career has been phenomenal. He got to play the CHL for 5 years, got snuck 1 year in. It was interesting. He was doing his law degree, business and law, usually 7 years. He did his 5. While playing, and I was just so impressed. How do you do this?
Pat Quinn. So Pat Quinn did.
Pat
Quinn did. That's great.
Yeah, so just phenomenal. And then, he snuck in. I remember he was just about to write his law exams, his final year, and he finished up his 5th year at UNB, and he made his own calls up to the Brantford Battalion. Dad, I'm gonna go up there. I got 10 days before I write my exams. I can play 3 or 4 games for pro here. And
That's
I remember
awesome.
I was down in Portland. We had played Portland that year, and I'd been a good friend of the coach there. I'd journeyed to Portland to watch them play weekend games, and then he had texted me and said, "Listen, Dad, I'm making my debut in Adirondack tomorrow. I'm on the bus right now with David Ling."
Oh, David Ling.
Yeah,
Oh, I haven't
yeah,
heard that name in
yeah,
forever.
So David
oh,
Ling and I are
one
on
of
the
my
bus.
favorites.
Yeah, we're driving from Brampton to Adirondack. So I looked on my, map. I said, "Okay, as a dad, you got to be there for the pros."
Yeah.
So I didn't only watch one game in Portland. I went through the mountains of New York State, and I arrived in Adirondack. And we had 2 other UNB guys playing in that game, so that was neat. But then becoming an NHL player agent, and just the mentorship of Lanois. He was Taylor's agent as a player. Became a really good family
Great
friend.
agent. He's a wonderful guy. You know all this.
Oh yes, yeah. So to give him that opportunity, he had done 1 year of his articling in law, and was set. He was on the dark side, criminal defense, and he was going to Dorchester Penitentiary, meeting with Hell's Angels guys. And I we talked all the time as a major junior player every day.
Yeah.
I almost talked more when he's criminal defense lawyer. Okay, what did you do today? Who did you represent today?
Yeah.
And he was going to try that law, and then Lan gave him the opportunity to work with him, and the years that he had there was interesting. I'd give him a call. Where you at? I'm in Broadway Street, Nashville today, or I'm in Vegas seeing a player today, or I'm following Jake Allen today. I'm going to see him. So, and I remember the last couple of weeks here. Obviously, a busy time of year with the draft, the NCAA coming up with the possible. And he said, one thing. He said, I'm really thankful that I was a player agent and made the connections and the experience I got from Alan, and now as a general manager, it's helped me so much now being a general manager.
I believe that.
And I think, just his collaboration, his connection with players. I remember our first meeting this year. He spoke to the group, and he said, we have to be the tightest team going. At UNB, we won national championships, and our team was really tight. Guys would, give up a specific role for the good of the team, and the more success the team had, the more success individuals had, and that was one of the things when to grow the culture in Moncton, and that was a big part of it, is just having the group really connected. And we did surveys at the end of the year, and on every survey was just a family in Moncton, and we call it FOE, family over everything, and your own family is the most important. And obviously we went through circumstances at the Memorial Cup that tested that's for sure. And I was a little late coming here to this function because we had a really special ceremony in Fredericton yesterday for Pat Buckley. Nice. And so that's always the most important. But then the next is the Wildcat family, or whatever organization you're with, is that family over everything. And I think we really accelerated that process and advanced how important your teammate is and how important the organization. And I go back to Mr. Irving, he's just the biggest proponent of that.
He seems like, and I think I may have met him once. He seems like the kind of owner who, if you need something / want something, you'll get it.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
I know you make the case. I know you make the case for it.
Yeah, you make a case, but he's unbelievable.
But if you can demonstrate that this is what this team needs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and for 24 years I was on the outside, and I had good friends that worked in the organization, and you'd always hear different things and all that. But my first month on the job, I was invited to a neat event in Moncton. I had four former premiers of New Brunswick were on a panel. Yeah. And it was all for the homeless and food support in the city. And, Mr. Irvin had made a big donation to that group. And then, we had our golf tournament. He gives $25,000 to a young group, and $50,000. He's going to have $1 million given in 10 years to them. And then he was over to PEI, and he gave a big amount to the farmers in PEI.
That's amazing.
Like in a 2 or 3 week brand. And most of the stuff he does under radar. But he's an amazing person. His business interests, he could be flying to Europe, he could be out to North Dakota. He has a big plant down in Georgia. During the tariffs with Canada and the U.S., he spent 2 weeks in Washington. And then he finds a way. He never missed a playoff game of ours. He just has such passion for life, for making a difference with people, and then obviously the Wildcats is his real passion.
His passion.
Yeah.
When I let me close on this one with you, Gardiner, and I thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. No.
Earlier when I brought up Coach of the Year, you talked about your staff. You talked about everybody on the bench, and last year, 6 months ago, I read music producer Rick Rubin's book on creativity. And his point is that no one does anything on their own. He said everything, whether it's music or whatever, everything's a collaboration. You're part of everything you've listened to, every conversation you've had, every interaction you've had, every, in this case, game you've watched, for example. First of all, do you agree with the idea that everything in our lives is a collaboration? And if so, who have some of your influences been on the way up? That whether you realize it or not, you're collaborating with their ideas.
Yeah, I think it really accurate and really true. When you look at, we've been fortunate to have some success here of late, maybe a little more prominent. And I don't know if you got country music fans, Luke Combs, when it rains, it pours. And I've been fortunate to have a lot of positive success, and I said, just hope there's still some left in the back pocket.
You're the winning machine, Gardiner. That's what they call you.
Yeah, but I think you're truly right, because you have enough experiences, but you need everybody. The team. We talk about the strength of the team is the team, and we got that at UNB, because we get a lot of players that would come to UNB, 60, 70 point guys, and they never ever asked, am I on the first line or the second line?
Right.
And I spent a lot of time on the recruitment and all that type of stuff, and we want the same thing, and it's tougher to do at this age group. 16 to 19, there's a shorter window.
Yep.
Every player, the goal is to make the NHL. And to make the NHL, you got to get drafted. And to get drafted, you got to have a lot of ice time, So I thought the group really played into the roles. And I was talking to, I didn't have one knock on my door this year about a player coming in and saying, hey, I need more ice time. I had some talks on the ice, and I try to keep the business on the ice a lot of times. But okay, what's my role, or and that's all part of it. But and I think Taylor probably has helped out a lot as a GM and found which stuff to come through to me and which not. And I think, as I said, did an amazing job of that. But I think all these little experience, and even as a player, we talked about Caleb. Caleb's had such an unbelievable career and win, and then through the playoffs, and part of it was with the injuries, part of it's a long season, and he didn't have the production, and he wants to be the guy every night, and that's the special thing about him. And the one thing, and I used to always I watched Crosby when he was young, and in the Quebec Major Junior League, and rarely did he have a game where he didn't get a point, but when he didn't get a point, it was often multi-points the next night,
Right.
And those special players, they have that special talent. Okay, you may have stopped me once,
but
you're
not
stopping
twice.
me. Yeah, and they just have that special ingredient. And Caleb, he went a little extended, through at the playoffs, and then, because I remember he came, 3 games I haven't got a point. I don't know when this has happened. And I said, hey, let's work on this together. And, hey, this will be good for you in the big picture. We're still winning.
I was going to say, I'm listening to you say this, your team was 1 or 2 in the country all year long. That kind of helps.
Yeah, no question.
Tough to complain about the program.
Been really lucky. But, I think that it's a chance to just grow, and going back, our motto at UNB was make a significant difference. The university motto, I've tried to, since I got to UNB, I said, what a great philosophy to live your life. How can I make a difference in somebody else's life? And whether, obviously, hockey's what we do, but even seeing, I go for a run in the streets in Toronto this morning. Well, I'm saying hello to everybody. I got a few weird reactions, and then I got some people actually.
Yeah, we don't do that here. We don't do that. We're not in the Maritimes.
But actually, I was amazed today down on the waterfront. I got a lot of smiles.
You did,
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's part of life. I mean, our job as coaches is to serve. And our staff is to serve our players, and in turn, our players to serve the community and make things special for Moncton Wildcats.
This has been a real delight. Congratulations again. Not just you, because I know you want to put your staff, the full bench of the year. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. All the best.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Much appreciated.
Excellent.
If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.